The following program is presented by Ride the Wave Media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for all our videos at Ride the Wave Media Podcast. Enjoy the program.
So, Jason, tell me about how it felt to win the Rumble.
Oh man, that was conflicted, I think is the best way. And there was a lot of racial tension in the room, which I addressed, but I think that a lot of people thought when I went up and addressed how conflicted it was, I think that they thought I meant that, but really I meant I was conflicted in winning because I was so happy to win, but because I'm so new at this, I only really prepared a solid 3 minutes. My 5 minutes, I had kind of a loose idea, like a starting point, a middle point, and an end. Wasn't very tight because I didn't have 10 minutes. I could do 10 minutes on its own, but not after breaking it up into like a 1, 3, 5. So I was excited, but also immediately like, fuck, what did I just do?
Yeah. And I love that moment. I want to talk about that whole journey for you, but I want to just sort of focus in on that feeling right there, because that happened to you. That also happened to Adam Chappell.
Yeah, he was telling me about that.
Who won the first one. And honestly, when I created the structure of the Rumble, the one thing that I was sort of a little worried about was the one hole in the structure that I saw was, maybe people burn all their good material up front, and so that it has a strong beginning and then a weak end is sort of what I've been worried about. And what I've found that you did, and also that Adam did, and I've loved seeing it from someone who loves to see people working really hard and jumping, like people who decide to do something and then go do it, right? Who they're going to pay the price. I love that moment for you and for Adam, because what I saw in both circumstances was you get there and you sort of arrive at this moment where you're like, fuck, I don't know what else I'm going to say.
Right.
And to me once, I remember the second or third time that I headlined. So the second or third time that I did my full hour, I got on a roll and I burned through my material. Usually lasts like an hour, and I just went through it super fast for some reason.
No.
So I was like, I went through all of my material and I had like 30 minutes left. And I remember that moment because it felt like there was, and I wonder if this is how it felt to you. It felt like very present. Like all of a sudden I was right there. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know where I was going to go. All of the attention was on me, and I could see every single like little detail in the microphone. And I was like, and the thought that I had was, it felt like I was floating, like I was falling. And I was like, okay. And then I just started doing stuff. There were sort of half thought out ideas that I tried before. I just started playing, and some stuff worked and some stuff didn't. And I followed what worked, and I got them back. And I ended up developing like several minutes of brand new things that I'd never done before just came out of me. And so I love seeing that moment for you, because what it felt like we did with you and with Adam is we pushed you into the deep end.
Definitely. There was definitely sink or swim. Fortunately for me, even though I'm new to this, I've purposely gone up a few times at, I guess, I don't want to say shittier mics, but harder rooms to work, bars, dive bars. People don't want to hear comedy in there. And I've purposely gone up with a little bit of my material, but also really more trying to kind of in that moment have to figure things out. I didn't go up with as much of a dialed in set like I did for the Rumble. I kind of would purposely try to go up and sort of figure things out. And not because I knew that this was coming, but I had a few times where I rearranged things on my set, and I got so caught up in like things being so perfect that it caused my brain to right at the same spot, just short circuit. And that gift that I have to be able to just grab ideas out of the air just was gone. And I immediately was like, get off the stage. And so I didn't ever want to feel that again. I wanted to be able to be like, take a breath, breathe in that moment, and be able to like grab something, carry that momentum, and keep going. Like, not let that moment really like trip you up.
Yeah, I love that. By the way, everybody, this is Jason. This is Jason Paxman. He is the winner of Comedy Rumble 3 in Las Vegas. And he's very graciously taking time out of his Thanksgiving vacation to come on my podcast today. Jason, do you want to say anything about yourself before we continue this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm brand new to comedy. I'm about 3.5, almost 4 months in at this point. Something I've been obsessed with my whole life. I always kind of felt like, because I knew how hard it was to do, that I had such a respect for the craft that it was kind of like one of those things where I was like, I'm funny. People think I'm funny, but I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I guess maybe the right set of circumstances kind of brought me to this point where we're at now, but that's where we're at.
What was it? What was that? So 3 months ago, that's very recent. Especially very recent for for then going on and winning a competition. What happened 3 months ago where you were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this.
So I have a really good friend of mine. I mean, being that I tattoo for a living, so I've been tattooing for 20 years, and that kind of sort of gives me my own little like platform to kind of do stand-up comedy. I've always been that person that's, as I'm watching stuff or as I'm like, I see things differently, and I will comment on it. And I learned at an early age that like if I could make people laugh, that it was almost like I was accepted. And so my brain was like addicted to making people laugh. So I learned early on like kind of how to set up jokes or what made people laugh. And just ever since then, I've just been like chasing that high, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so what pushed you from doing the you're sort of doing it in you're tattooing people, you're making them laugh, right? It's kind of like a thing that you're doing, and then you're like, now I'm going to go do it on stage. What?
Right. So the I guess the stepping stone there was like, again, I had coworkers, friends that were really pushing me to do it, and I was kind of pushing back. And I don't know if it was because I don't think I was scared of bombing. I think it was scared of like, I guess maybe being successful, which here we are, and it is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
But really, that caveat there was I tattooed a good friend of mine, and she runs an animal shelter, Paws Kept Safe Rescue out here in Las Vegas, and she wanted to put on a little charity event for a fundraiser for raising money for the dogs. And she said, "Hey, we talked about doing comedy one time. I tattooed her. She's like, if I do it, will you do it?" And I was like, sure. So this event comes up, and she goes, "Hey, remember that agreement?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." She goes, "Well, I would love to have you on." And I was like, "Well, here's the thing. I'm not a comedian. I haven't done it yet." She's like, "I don't care. You're funny. I believe in you. It's a perfect place to do it." So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And I was up there with some other great comics in town, Chris Spring, Evan Connolly, a couple others that are you in the wise guy circuit. They kind of took me in under their wing and gave me some good advice right out the gate when I did that show. And it just kind of, I just got obsessed with it. Like in the moment when I went up and did that first set, my expectations were not what it was. And I did okay, enough so that when I got off stage, when we had an intermission, a lot of the comics had came up and were impressed that was my first time ever. And me, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, I fucked this up, I fucked that up. They're like, nobody knows that. You're the only one who knows that.
You're the only one that knows that. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that origin story so much. What did you do? Like, so how long did you have? Kind of paint the picture for us. It's this dog fundraiser for cute little puppies.
Right. So she hits me up roughly around, I want to say May. She's kind of spitballing the idea, looking at locations, tells me about it. And before that, so I had tattooed her about October, so about a year ago this time. And that's when we talked about doing this. And so for me, because it's kind of been one of those things where it's slowly been getting more and more like in my realm of doing it, I've been kind of like more and more accepting of it. And the more I do that, the more those signs start showing themselves. So when we talked about it, I immediately got a book, started writing stuff down, because I was like, I kept thinking like, I'll remember this. And I think of so much ridiculous shit that I can't keep track of it all. So I have to write it down. So I got a book, I started writing some stuff down. It wasn't even really so much jokes. I guess it was more like premises. And I was going to kind of just ad lib in the moment. And that's kind of what I did for my first set. Was I just sort of had kind of a set list, kind of a rough idea of different things, different topics I wanted to talk on. And I kind of had a few jokes that I wrote out. But beyond that, it was kind of like, let's try to figure this out.
Was there like a laugh in that set that you remember getting? Like, was there something that you did that worked really well? or anything about that set that you were like, oh yeah, that.
I think what it was I had an idea on how I wanted to come out and start the set, but when I was there, I just really took a moment to realize where I was and what the event was, and I was like, I'm a tattoo artist doing comedy for the first time. This is a pet charity event. And I was like, why don't I just make a joke? Like, to be fully honest, guys, I just found out that I'm doing comedy. Like, I literally thought I was tattooing dogs a minute ago. So it was kind of a dumb, silly right there joke, but I was like,
Yeah.
it's perfect because nobody else there could use that joke. Like that joke, I came out and I said that, and immediately everybody in the room laughed. And for me, that just like took the air out in a good way where I could breathe. And I was like, okay, we're off to a good start.
I love that, because one of the things that I noticed about you as I was watching you at the Rumble, and this was what I had, when you remember before we went out, I gathered everybody up and I just wanted to put an idea in everyone's head.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that I wanted to put into everyone's head was listen, right? Because I just come from that Rumble. I just come from a really fabulous 2-week trip in New York where I'd spent 1 week in an upstate like barn with a group of really creative people. And it's like this. They do it every year. It's like a group of creatives. They get together and they like play. Basically, there's a bar. There's like a jam session in the basement. There's like a couple drums and like a grand piano and like guitars, and they all just play. That's a band, right? They're just playing in a band. And I went there and I would sit in that room and I would just listen to them play. And as I was listening to them, and I'm also listening to them talk, and I wanted to go out to New York because I wanted to go and hear what they had. I wanted to listen to the city, right? I wanted to listen to how people out there think. And then I did a week at the New York City Comedy Festival where I was just listening. And so that was really top of mind for me. And then, so we come to the Vegas show, we sit down, I kind of brief everybody on that. And what I noticed from you is you were really good at listening, being aware of what's happening, right? You sort of mentioned the racial tension, which we'll get into a little bit because that was I actually have a fun follow-up for that I'm excited for. But because it was wild. Maybe we'll even get into it a little bit because I'm thrilled that it went down the way that it did, because part of how I'm thinking about the Rumble is a little like WWE wrestling, where it's about sort of creating sort of big conflicts that are sort of made up, but also allow us to do things, right?
Right.
I think that one of the things that we still have to grapple with as a nation is race, right? We still
100%.
have not figured that out. And especially given a week and a half ago, what had just happened is we just had an election where a white man had defeated a black woman. And then like a week later, somehow, I still don't understand how this happened. Somehow Jake Paul kicked Mike Tyson's ass.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
It feels something feels so fishy there to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever was, so there was that, and then you, and I thought you were so great at doing it because you made a couple of jokes about it during the thing. But you go up, and I think the first person that you go up against is Mark Johnson, who's a fabulous black comic. He
had a great set too. Killer set.
So fucking funny. Everyone, and what I love too about Mark and about fucking everyone on that show is everyone did their job, right? Yeah. Everyone did their job. And Mark came up and did a great set, and you came up and did a great set. But here's the thing. You did your job in two ways. You did your job because there's actually two jobs that comics have. Job number one is be funny. Job number two is bring people to the show.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Uh-oh.
Are you back? Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you. You're right when you started saying the first reason, and then you got robot voice.
Okay. So every comic has two jobs, right? And I've been in the game for about 3.5 years. So I'm by no means, I have by no means figured this out yet. So 100%. But what I have figured out is that if you're a comic, if you're serious about doing comedy, that is your chosen vocation, you're going to do the work of comedy. You've got to get good at two things. You got to be able to be funny on stage, and you have to be able to bring people to shows. Right? Those are the two things that you have to do. And what I figured out, because I'm in this full time, like I was like, this is the thing I'm going to do. And so I got to make money quick. And so I had to figure out that bringing people thing pretty quickly. And what I learned was those are both really important. And you did your job in both areas, because you were funny and you had a solid group of humans who you brought to the show who could support you. And so you go up against Mark Johnson, and Mark Johnson is funny as fuck.
Yeah.
Funny. But he doesn't have his people in the audience, or he doesn't have as many, right?
Right.
And so you go through. And then I think the next person that you go up against is Kid Q.
Q, yeah.
Again, hysterical, right?
Oh, and his set was so good. I hadn't seen him before, so it was a pleasure to watch him work.
It was truly a pleasure to watch him work. He's going to be, I think, my next guest on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Truly a pleasure. And a pleasure to talk to afterwards. Just a brilliant mind, a really funny guy. And at that moment, and this is where it's going to be kind of fun to kind of play with what happened, is that that even without that one, we 2 cheers. I couldn't tell. We did the decibel thing, same amount of noise. And so I had to flip a coin. And so what I'm going to do, this is what I'm excited about. I'm going to go find, because the joke was we flipped a quarter, and it's got George Washington. George Washington's a slave owner.
Right.
He said quarter, and Comedy Rumble shall never again will I allow Comedy Rumble to be accused of racist systems. And so I'm going to go get it might be just a penny, but I know a woman. She's a Black woman here in Salt Lake who owns this thrift store. It's called Lilies of the Field. Her name is Mary, and she sold me this fabulous coat that I wear at Burning Man. And nice. I'm going to go to her and I'm going to be like, hey, do you have, I need, like, if a quarter with George Washington is a racist coin, I need an anti-racist coin. Do you?
What's the wokest coin that we have for a coin toss?
The wokest coin that I can possibly get, right? And then I'm going to issue an apology to Kid on the podcast, and I'm gonna be like, Kid, because I'm not saying he would have won. I'm not saying that he would have won, but I'm committed to weed out to put all comedians on the same level playing field.
Oh, that's good.
Which is, I think, is a funny bit. And
100%.
And what I love about comedy, and especially given the current world that we're in and the power that I think comedy has, is that actually then allows us to have conversations about race and about.
Right. Well, to me, that's part of what comedy is taking the absurd in the everyday and being like, can we all agree that, like, there's some truth here, but there's also some ridiculous bullshit that's going on, and let's filter through that.
Right. Let's make light of it. Right. I think people talk about, I get blasted sometimes because I'll make jokes about things that people think are too serious.
Right.
And I genuinely believe there is no topic too serious to be joked about, because when there's two ways to think about making light of something, right? One is like, oh, it's not important. But the other is making light. We are literally bringing light to dark places.
Right.
And then we can do it, right? If we can all I think it's going to be a fabulous, funny moment, and I'll make it really official. I'll be like, look, you guys, we have a woke coin. We are committed to it. So it's a joke. It's funny. It's silly. But then it also sort of says in this really charged environment, hey, we all belong here. Chairs are for everyone. Everyone is a chair, right?
Right. It's one of those things where we're saying it's a safe place without all the bullshit that people have to use. Exactly. And it sucks because I feel like a lot of the things that we're doing as a society in this woke culture, I think that the heart and the intent is there to correct things, but it's tough because where do we draw the line, But I feel like that's what comedy is beautiful, is that, like, we can have these conversations and push the envelope on it and just really open it up and talk about it and make light of it.
Make light of it. And I think the woke is like, it's a pendulum, right? So it's reacting to a real problem And at the same time, in its reaction to it, it's sort of create, and we do this as humans, right? We create the thing, we go to the other end of the extreme, and we end up creating the thing that we were trying to not do, right? It's classic human.
Yeah, it's like we push so hard for this momentum to take place that when it finally gets some legs and takes off, then we're like, oh shit, maybe we need to slow that down. I think it's too much of an overcorrection. It's hard to slow that momentum.
Yeah. And I think comedy is such a great art form, and it's such a crucial part of our national dialogue, because it's a place where we can sort of go and you can say anything as long as it's funny. And so the practice then becomes make.
Right. That's the thing, is I feel like you can talk about that. Oh, sorry.
We're synced up again. Go ahead.
All right. No, what I was saying was, I think that's just it, is you can talk about, in my eyes, I feel like there's no subject that's off limits, but you got to be smart about it. Like there's something to be said about being offensive to just be offensive, right? That's funny to a degree, but you also have to, I feel you have a responsibility to sort of make a poignant point out of it. You should have at least something that you're trying to get across. Otherwise, I feel like it's just, you're kind of just punching down.
If you're gonna step into spicy territory, you better have something worthwhile to say.
Right.
You better have prepared for that moment. And I think a lot of times when I see young comics, when I see them starting, what's difficult about comedy, and I know you've experienced this, because it's the worst feeling in the world, is you think something is funny and you say it and you're like, this is going to work, and nothing. Right?
I guess that's might be where I have somewhat of an advantage, because I've always been, I mean, and I think that's deep down, I knew that I should be a comic ever since I was a kid, because I've always had that in me, that gallows humor, or just that incessant need to just be like, oh, you should say this right now. And it doesn't land. And it's like, ooh,
it's like, oh, it's so painful, right? But when it doesn't land, right, the issue there really is we haven't found the funny yet.
Right.
We haven't found the funny yet. And I think that is sort of our task, is to find the funny. But I think that young comics, to sort of fill that void, to fill that emptiness, they'll say things that are shocking, because shocking gets a reaction.
Right.
And what we really want as comics is we want a reaction from the audience, right? We want something, because it's energetic exchange, right? All we're doing is they are giving us energy and we're doing something with it, right? That's the whole flow. It's so, and so if there's nothing and we can say something shocking, then we've got something. Right.
Because then it's like, if everybody gasps, you can approach that so many different ways. So yeah, I mean, it's to me, it has its place, but I feel like if that's all you're relying on is that shock value, but you don't have anything else, like that only goes so far.
I agree. I think it's novice, right? I think it's you do when you're new, because you want something, and then eventually, hopefully, what you learn is you got to make it funny. So that doesn't mean don't talk about shocking things. Like I have my friend Becca, she's on she won one of the Rumbles up here. She's going to be on the All-Star Rumble that I'm so excited about that's this Friday up here in Salt Lake.
Nice.
She is a fabulous human. She used to be a skydiving instructor. She had a horrible accident 3 years ago where she became paralyzed from the neck down. So she's in a,
Yikes.
she's a quadriplegic. She's in a wheelchair. She drives around with her mouth, and she is so fucking funny. And her first set, the first thing that she did when she was on the Rumble, her new minute, one of the jokes was one of her very good friends had just died. And like a couple of months ago, it had been a really difficult summer. And so her setup for her joke was, she said, I've had a rough summer, you guys. I broke my leg. My wheelchair broke. My best friend died. That bitch is always trying to one-up me.
Yeah, that's solid.
So good. It's such a good joke.
Yeah.
And what she did there is she could have just been like, she made it funny, right? You went into that dark place, and rather than just being shocked, because now it's like, because now it's like, oh yeah, like I can like there's this relatability to that. And that what she did is she took this tragedy, and it's a tragedy that she was very much feeling. And it's a tragedy that so many people have lost someone. And
Right.
took that, and then it made that thing a little less heavy.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's something to that. I feel like not that you have to be a tortured or broken or damaged person or come from a dark place like that to be funny, but I definitely think that when you've been to hell and back, it kind of gives you a different perspective on things, and you can kind of see the funny and the silver lining and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people who are I mean, all the comics that I know have something bad happen to them.
At least one, if not many.
At least one bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny too about that is, so there's this I'm about to nerd out on you a little bit, but there's this book that I have in my house. It's one of my favorite books. It's this big, thick, like Harvard textbook for this course called Character Strengths and Virtues. And it's written by the founder of the positive psychology movement. His name's Martin Seligman. He was a researcher, and he sort of, for a long time, psychology just looked at what went wrong in people. And
Right.
he was like, y'all, we should be studying healthy people. Like, why don't we invest in what makes people happy?
Yeah,
And,
like let's model after what's going right.
right, exactly. And so he got together with a whole group he took a team of 50 social scientists, and they scoured every world religion, every major world philosophy, and what they were looking for are there common human values that we all share, and can we categorize them? And so they came up with kind of like 6 different buckets of different types of values, and one of the buckets was transcendent. So there are certain transcendent values, and a transcendent value helps us sort of get up above. So these are things like awe and wonder and respect, right? These are transcendent values, and they listed humor as a transcendent value, which I love, because essentially what that means to me is humor, it allows you, if you can laugh, you get above whatever it is.
Right.
It lets you sort of step up, and so if I can laugh at something, it's not controlling me. If I
Right.
can,
It can't destroy you if you're laughing about it.
no, and also there's something really cool about laughter physiologically, because it relaxes you. You get all these great endorphins. It brings you into the present moment. It's also a communal thing generally, right? So we're laughing with people, and I really think that one of the most important things we can do in these apocalyptic times, right? And the world is legitimately batshit crazy right now. Like things,
100%.
there are aliens coming out of the water. Like it's, what is even going on? And I can't think of anything more important, more healing to do than to get in a room with a bunch of people who live around you, who are different than you, and to laugh together about things.
100%. It's crazy too, because like I said, I've had so much self-doubt growing up, as I think a lot of comics do and struggle with. And again too, I felt like image played a lot of it, which is silly if you think about it, because like, what is a comic? What does a comic look like?
Right.
But just, when I was a kid, I was growing up, like people like Jim Carrey, like I idolized him, and Robin Williams, and like, I don't look like either of those guys. I look fucking crazy sometimes, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. But something about that to me was like, oh, well, I'm trying to be a tough guy over here because I'm hiding how sensitive I am. So I can't be a comic, that people don't want to see this. Yeah. But I realized that like in tattooing and doing that one, I'm pretty funny. And more than anything, like I had a realization right before I started doing all this, that I really feel like I have purpose. Like I feel like I love making people laugh. And someone asked me, like, what makes you the happiest? And I think that I'm the happiest when I'm making people laugh. And since I started doing this, like I feel just so much more full of purpose now. And it's not to get all sad and dark for a moment, but I did lose my mom, and it was pretty gnarly, and it's been about 12 years now. And it's something that, I carry with me, but this is the first thing that has really not taken away that pain, but it's restored that light again, like we talked about. It's brought that light back into my life. And she was like she was my first believer. She was my biggest supporter. And I had to have that moment where I'm like, she would be so pissed if I wasted this opportunity to not do this. And so I have to do it, like, I guess to a degree in her honor, but like it makes me happy, like thinking about her like that, just smiling down on me, making people laugh.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Do you have a memory of like a moment when you made your mom laugh that you sort of treasure that's like a special time for you?
There's so many, but like I just remember when I was a kid, I guess I've always been kind of a rocker and a bit of a ham for attention. And so I was obsessed with Van Halen, and Jump had come out. And so I was literally like jumping off the couches, scissor kicking in the air. And she just thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so like
Oh God.
whenever like I would get her laughing, like I just, again, like I said, like my brain learns to like pick up on those responses. And I was like, whatever I have to do to keep getting that response, I'm going to keep doing it.
You know, I love that your mom, what a gift that your mom gave you, that she saw what could have been seen as a very obnoxious boy jumping on the furniture.
100%.
And what she saw was, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift that she gave you. And I love that you've sort of received that from her. And now that's the gift that you're giving.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, it's taken me a long time to realize that. I'm 5 years sober now, 5 years and some change, and part of that was, I kind of started destroying myself. I drank a lot before that, but drugs and alcohol definitely kind of became a big factor in that, and I definitely lost that humor. I mean, I still would joke and stuff, but it was more weaponized at people, and hurt people hurt people. So
Yeah.
I finally got to a point where I got my shit together, and after getting sober, that was like a hard readjustment into kind of navigating different terrains. And so once I kind of started getting more comfortable, all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of a funny dude again. Like I forgot who I was, So
Yeah.
once I started seeing that and it got like a good reaction, it just seemed like people have responded to all the things that I've been doing. And so like that's part of that group that you see, is that I'm just trying to be the best version of myself, and these people believe in me for some crazy reason.
Yeah. I mean, the reason is because you're fucking funny.
Well, thank you.
You're fucking funny. And what I've noticed too, and this is, I'm interested to learn about the way that you approach comedy as a craft, because I think that one of the things that I noticed that I mentioned a little bit before we started recording, but I just want to get into this, is obviously you're a tattoo artist. You've been doing that for 20 years.
Yep.
So that's a long time. And I saw one of the people who came to the show. She showed me one of the tattoos that you'd done for her. It was a little sleeve shoulder, and it was truly beautiful. Like,
Thank you.
Very the detail, and like all of these little, there were all these, like, there was this big image, and then there were all these little smaller images that were a part of it. And I saw that. I saw that after the show, and it sort of made me think back on all of your set. And I was like, oh, I understand a little bit how Jason's mind works. And I saw the same level of craftsmanship in the tattoo that I saw in what you were doing on stage, where it's just like deliberate, very attentive to detail, like we're doing this thing, right? And so I'm curious to know how you approach comedy as a craft.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm the type of person where if I'm going to do something, I don't half-ass it. I'm all in. Like,
You
if you're
whole
going
ass.
to do something, fucking do it. Like, just like, and to me, part of comedy is committing to the bit. And for me, I will do anything for the sake of comedy. Well, not anything, but just about anything for the sake of comedy.
Yeah.
And you have to have that commitment, right? And tattooing is about commitment, and it's about the attention to detail. So for me, my brain is kind of crazy. I've actually recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and I know everybody throws that around, and I hate even saying it, but like I had a legit therapist be like, you know why you're so crazy? You have anxiety because you have ADHD.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the good thing about it, and the reason why I tell people, is because I'm like, just bear with me. My brain's fucking crazy. I've got 15 windows open all at once, and sometimes they all crash and I forget what we were talking about. And I'm like, shiny.
We're like, stimulate something new, please.
Yeah. Is someone burning something?
Yeah. Yeah. And I could feel that committing to the bit. And it's interesting too, to see that corollary between like, because I don't have, I'm untattooed, and growing up
Now,
for now,
for
for
now,
now, growing up Mormon, tattoos were very bad, right? Very
right,
wicked, very sinful. And even as someone who's now left and sort of left that behind, I've I've sort of wanted, but I've also been, there's a part of me that's like, oh, the commitment, like then it's,
right,
but also I think that that's part of the appeal is that there is sort of like this, it's unerasable. It's like we
right.
commitment, right? I'm committing to this thing.
It's
And
also too, to a degree, it's like it's a snapshot in time. And I think
mm,
sometimes people, and that's why people cover things up, is they go, I just really don't want to remember this time in my life anymore. And I think
right.
that there's a permanence to like it's like, all right, I can make a mistake and fuck up as long as I learn and move on. But like if that mistake is also like a visual representation that you carry with you, that makes it that much harder.
Talk to me a little bit. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit, because I'm curious about how because you offered to do a tattoo for me, and
Absolutely.
I'm going to take you up on that because I want to do it, and I'm curious, as I've been thinking about that, I've been curious about what your process is for, like, do you just have someone come in and say, because I don't imagine that people know exactly what they want. I
No, and
imagine,
it's funny because I've been working on a bit about that, about how people are either overshare or they undershare. And an ideal client will have maybe not everything fleshed out, but like a rough idea, theme, like, hey, I really love pirate stuff. Okay. I want, these certain elements. And from that, you're the artist, you do your thing. Like, to me, that's where I work well, where it's like a sort of a collaboration of efforts, where when people come in and they say, you're the artist, do whatever you want, they don't really mean that, because I've definitely thrown out some bonkers ideas and they are like, nope, I don't want that. And I'm like, okay, so we've clearly drawn a line.
yeah, that's interesting. So that's fun, because you found a no, right? And I've been really intrigued recently, mostly in like my dating life, about the power of no, where if I go on a date with a woman, one of the first things that I try to do is I try to get her to say no to something, because I want to know that she knows how to say no.
Right.
And I want her to know that I know how to hear no.
Right.
And I also want to establish a boundary, because you
Yeah.
got, in any dynamic, in any relationship, there's got to be a line. And once the line is there, then you can play. And so it's fun. Like I can imagine that as a tattoo artist, like people coming in like, yeah, do whatever you want. And you're like,
You want to hear what I hit them with?
yes.
So, okay. So usually it goes something like this. They'll come in, they're like, oh, bro, I love your work. It's so sick. I'm like, thank you. Like, bro, just something sick, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, you got to give me a rough idea. No, bro, anything. And I'm like, no, you got to give me an idea, like some kind of an idea, bro, literally anything. So I go, okay, anything. How about Jesus getting fist fucked by the Virgin Mary? No? Okay. We've established the line. Yeah. It's always a hard no there.
That's funny. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just, not that I want to do that, but I just try to think of like, what's the most like absurd in your
Right.
face thing? Like, you say anything, like, okay, that's the end of anything. So
Yeah.
and you could get crazier than that, I'm sure, but like, that's definitely part of it.
And I would imagine too that as an artist, because what thrilled me about the idea, so when I saw her tattoo, and then you were like, I'll give you one, I was like, my immediate like sort of like gut reaction was yes. And
Oh, yeah.
the reason that it was that I saw your work, and what I imagined doing is I was like, ooh, I feel like Jason is a mind where I could pour in some ideas. I
Mhm.
could come to him and I could say, dude, this is kind of what I'm thinking. This is sort of the structure. Here are some things that are sort of important to me.
Yep.
And now go do your artist thing with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
100%.
sort of this collaborative, because I can't draw. Like I can sort of but that's not my art. That's not
Right.
what
Well,
I.
that's not your job. My job is to create the image for you. And I think that somewhere along the way with these, I don't know if it's the shows or if it's the internet or what it is, but people feel like they have to have this control over everything. And I want you to be happy with your tattoo, but at some point, like again, yeah, I'm the expert. So like you gotta trust what I gotta say about this.
Mhm. I love it. We talked a little bit about it, but can we talk a little bit about what I would imagine my tattoo would be?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So I think I want it on my right arm. And I've thought a lot about it. And the main structure of it is I don't know that I want it to be very big. I'm imagining it sort of like right here.
Right.
And the reason I want it right there is it's next to veins. And the idea is it's my life force.
Right.
Right. I want it to be all of my life force is sort of generated in the center of my being, right? It's generated in my belly and then it moves up into my heart, and then my heart divides it and it sends it down and out my hands. And that's the way that I create in the world.
Right.
I'm channeling this energy out into the world with these hands.
Right.
And the way I do that is that I hold a microphone.
Right.
Right. But I was actually raised to hold a sword. So I grew up Mormon. Mormonism is a very violent religion. And it's interesting that people don't really know that, because on the outside it looks very nice. But if you read the stories in the Book of Mormon, so the Book of Mormon is like the foundational book of scripture for Mormons. And I grew up reading that thing all the time. In fact, I have a whole box. I didn't watch cartoons as a kid. I watched Book of Mormon cartoons. And one of the stories in the Book of Mormon, the first story in the Book of Mormon, is a story about the sword of Laban. And the sword of Laban is a sword that there's a wicked guy and his name's Laban, and he's living in Jerusalem, and he has these brass plates, which are the scriptures. The scriptures have been written on them. And he also has this sword, and it's this super magical, like super cool sword. It has like a silver hilt and it's got diamonds in it and shit. So it's this very flamboyant, very, very sort of mystical sword.
Right.
And the story is told from the perspective of a kid named Nephi, who's this young kid, and his dad is named Lehi, and his dad is a prophet. His dad has a dream. God comes to him in the dream and is like, yo, I'm going to destroy Jerusalem because it's wicked. And so
he's from Jersey. Yo,
he's
wicked
from Jersey.
Bad,
God is definitely the Guido from Jersey.
Yo, he's wicked pissed.
Wicked pissed, man. I'm wicked pissed.
Sodom Gomorrah, get out of here.
Get out. Time to go. And so Lehi listens, and he drags his whole family out into the desert, and they leave. But after they leave, God comes in again and is like, hey, you got to go back and get the scriptures. You got to go get those brass plates. Because if you don't get those brass plates, then because I'm going to take you to a new world. I'm going to take you to America, where you're going to be, where you're going to become a great and mighty nation. And, but if you don't have the scriptures when you're there, then you'll dwindle in unbelief. You won't be able to live the true religion. So Lehi sends his sons back to Jerusalem to get the golden or the brass plates from Laban. So they go to Laban's house, and the first they send one brother in to just ask for them. And Laban's like, no. So then they go back to their house, and it turns out Lehi's a pretty rich guy. So they grab all of their shit. They like bags and bags of gold and precious things. And they go back to Laban. They're like, hey, can we buy the plates from you? And Laban's like, no, also this shit is all now mine. Guards, attack them. And so they run away. And then Nephi, who's the faithful brother, he's like, I'm going to try one more time. And so he prays, and he goes back at night, and he says that he feels the Holy Ghost sort of guiding him through the alleys of Jerusalem. And all of a sudden he stumbles upon Laban passed out drunk in an alleyway. And an angel speaks to Nephi and says, you got to kill him. And Nephi's like, but I've never killed a person before. Like,
right.
Do that. And the angel says to him, the Lord sometimes kills the wicked to bring to pass his righteous purposes. We command you to kill him. And Nephi's like, every fiber of my body didn't want to do that, but he's like, okay. And so he pulls out Laban's sword and he chops Laban's head off. And then he takes Laban's clothes and he puts Laban's clothes on and he goes to Laban's treasury and pretends to be Laban and gets the guy in charge of the treasury to give him the brass plates. And then he goes back to his family. And so they go to America, and the sword of Laban then becomes like an heirloom that's passed down through the generations to all their kings. And I'm named after King Benjamin in the Book of Mormon. So one of the later kings is named Benjamin. That's where my name comes from. That's why I'm the fresh King Benjamin. Like, it's a refresh, right?
Right.
And so he wields the sword of Laban, and it's like a whole thing. And that is a terrifying story, right? Because essentially it is a story about how a kid murdered someone in cold blood because a voice in his head told him to.
Right.
Which is truly horrifying. But what it was taught to me as is, look, sometimes God is going to command you to do things that are going to feel bad. And it's important that you don't listen to your feelings, that instead you do what is right.
Right.
Right. So there's this militancy, there's this real violent militancy that I was raised with of, like, I didn't anticipate that I would be killing people, but if God told me to, like, the expectation was that I would. And and that is not, I'm not going to kill people. That is not, I reject that. I reject violence as a way to improve. That is not the best of who we are as humans.
Right.
And so what I want to do with this tattoo is I want it to be the sword of Laban that turns into there's the hilt, there's the handle, and then the blade grows into a microphone.
Right. I like that. Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's a whole saying with, like, the pen being mightier than the sword. So it's obviously got multiple layers to it.
Yeah, and it also feels like, too, like one of the things that I have, the kind of the journey that I've been on, where when I started comedy, it was sort of an expression of who I really was, and the realization that I could only do what I'm good at.
Right.
And that really the gift that I have to give is my voice. That's what I'm really good. I don't think that I'm the best in the world at most things, but I'm the best in the world at talking. And that's the gift that I have, right? That's the thing that I have to give. And so I feel this very strong. Like, I'm not the strongest person. I'm a very small, but I have a very loud voice, and that is my weapon.
Definitely.
That is my tool. That is the way that I move power in the world, the way that I deliver value, the way that I create change, the way that I make things happen is with my voice. That's my weapon. It's not a sword. I'm not here to cut people. I'm not here to stab people. I'm here to, but I also kind of like, there's also some biblical imagery there of, like, the pen, or not, like you said, the pen is mightier than the sword, but also there's this in the Bible, the gospels often compared to like a sharp-edged sword, right? So that our words are weapons, right? That we can, and so that there's also, I think, a level of, like, discipline that feels part of that. Like, it's a craft. I want to master it. And I also want to be very deliberate in how I use it, right? I don't want to cause unnecessary pain.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, it's with great power comes great responsibility kind of a situation, where you have a platform, and you've got this, like, for us, for example, we have this gift of gab, this ability to see the world from a different lens. And it's sort of our responsibility to take that and use it responsibly, and, not tear people down or cut people down, kill in a different way. You want to kill them with kindness. And, like, that's the thing, is I used to be an angry person. I used to be that, like, bitter person that would resort to violence, but that's just because I didn't know how to manage all the feelings that I was having. And I think that that's just is it. Now I'm like, no, let's feel these feelings. Like, let's spread light and love and just have a good time. And that's where that weird duality is that people assume that I'm one way, but I'm not, and so
which is a fun
for me to talk about, it's easy to talk about.
I love that. And two, the other part of it that for me that feels really kind of the commitment, right? The thing that's sort of like that I want to have baked into that tattoo is this idea of alchemy, it's transformation. And
Mhm.
it's also for me, it's about taking the power that I was given. Because especially, and this is the way that I'm woke, right? The way that I'm woke is that I fully recognize that for me at least, I was raised in a white supremacist worldview. I was raised in a world, and I live in
I
a.
just look like I was.
You just look like you were.
Yeah, right.
I literally was, right? Like the
Right.
only growing up in Mormon polygamy, they have a very strict code around like you don't mix with black people, right?
Right.
And the only unforgivable sin that I could ever commit, that where I would not be able to go back and be with like and do that church thing again with them, is if I were to have sex with a black person. So self, I've never
So wild.
and which
So
is
wild.
crazy,
Right.
right? Legit crazy. And it's also, all it really is, right, is it's this white supremacy that was sort of baked into America from the beginning, that we've been kind of getting rid of for a long time, but it's baked into that because it's a religion they don't change. And so I come out of that, and I'm very aware of my own sort of baked in white supremacy. And I'm also very aware, because of that, I'm aware of my privilege. I'm aware of my power. I'm aware of, and it's interesting to me because I don't want to ever take away from the energy that I put into my life, because I
Right.
put energy into my life to make my life better. And it was way easier because I was a white man.
Right.
So it's like both of those things are true. And I don't even want to get into, I don't want to argue about privilege or not privilege. What I want to say, what I want this tattoo to mean to me is all of that power, any power that is mine, wherever it came from, be it my own self or be it the privileged accumulation of generations
Right.
of abuse and extortion and thievery,
Right.
whatever it is, whatever power I have to command, I am transforming that power into love and into service and into good. And anything that I do, anything that I touch, anything that I ignite with this torch, that's another image, right? I think that some flame there would be, because it's also like,
Okay, yeah.
it's a mic, but it's also, I'm lighting fires. And
Yeah.
the fires that I'm lighting are, let's build a better world, you guys. Like let's acknowledge the world that we live in, and the ways that it is broken, and the ways that it continually beats down our brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
Let's
100%.
the way that it beats down us, and let's burn that old world and let's make a new one. And I demand that new world be one in which everyone gets to be right. It's where we don't have racist coin tosses, right?
Right.
Right. And obviously that's not the thing, but
Right.
it's a joke of the real thing, which is I want to take all of that power that's in me, and I want to just twist it just a little bit to then go. And because I don't think it does anyone any. I think sometimes people who are in positions like us, where we have some level of white privilege, we sort of take a back seat and we sort of say, well, if I have, like, maybe I shouldn't, or we become passive. And I think that is a mistake. We should not be passive. We should be actively creating a better world.
Definitely. And that's the thing, is that there's that saying that all it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to not do anything. I'm sure I'm butchering it there, but that's the basis of it there. And I feel like that really is. It's tough, because you have to figure out, like, well, what battles do I want to fight? How much do I want to get invested? And obviously there's so much going on, but this is kind of how we can, is by using our platform for good, instead of further adding to those problems. And that's the thing, is that, like, I had recognized the flaw in myself, regardless of, like, privilege or race. Like, I was an angry person, and it had nothing to do with any of that. Like, I was dealing with my own stuff. So for me, I definitely tend to for sure play into that a little bit more, and try to be maybe a little bit too nice because I look the way I do, or I definitely try to take a back seat, or like I even was like almost gonna be like, it's okay, you go ahead and win, you move to the next round, like, because I don't want that conflict.
Yeah. And what I want is I want us to step into that conflict, right? I want us to step into that conflict and to say, y'all, I'm here to help.
Right.
I'm here to help. And whatever that looks like, right? And if all of us show up, I think that we are being bamboozled in America.
100%.
We have so many people who have realized that if they can scare us, they can do cool shit with our, and you get this as a comic.
Yep.
Energy is energy is energy. So if I can get a bunch of humans feeling fear, and then I can control that fear, if I'm on the right, if I'm on the left, it doesn't really matter. They're both doing the same. They're both trying to get fear, and then they're trying to harvest that fear into to do what they want to do. And I'm like, no. What I want to create is laughter. What I want to create love. I want to create a world where it doesn't, and I can't do anything. I cannot fix America, even though growing up, I was told that was my destiny.
Right.
Which
those aren't big shoes to fill or anything.
I mean, it was a lot maybe for a little boy from Wyoming.
A bit much for a 3-year-old to hear, but
for a child. But I can make the world that I'm in good. And I can insist that everyone around me, everyone that I work with, everyone that in my sphere, that we're all committed to the same. It's like I'm looking at them and I'm like, look, shit's crazy out there, but right here, and I got you, and I got you, and I got you, and I got you. And we are all looking around at what's happening right here, and right here is safe.
Right.
And we welcome anyone who wants to come in here and help make this a safe, vibrant, happy place. You are welcome. And if you come into this and you don't have that energy, we will kindly, forcefully
tell you to kick rocks.
Go kick rocks, man. You don't get to be here. That's when the microphone becomes a little bit of a club. It's like, look,
amazing.
I can't stab you with this thing, but I can beat the shit out of you.
Bludgeon you.
I can bludgeon you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the one thing that I will say that's different about a lot of the other things that I've done, because I've done a lot of different crazy shit. Like I like to do hard things. I like to challenge myself. I like to be like, hey, like my toxic trait is I'm like, I could do that. And then I'm like, well, hang on a second. What does that look like logistically? And if I look and see how the sausage is made, and I'm like, I think I could do that. I give it a try and I give it my all. Mm-hmm. So with that, I really just try to take everything seriously and put everything into it. And with comedy, there's some cool guys that definitely are assholes, but I see them, they're bullies. I just keep my head down. I do what I'm doing. And I used to get sucked into that mindset or that mentality of that ego battle with people. And I just don't do it now. I'm better than that. And I've learned that when people are like that, they tend to see something in you that they're threatened by. And I've met so many kind people in comedy, more so than any other thing that I've started, where people have legit said some things that have really been what's kept me going in this, because it is literally the hardest thing I've ever done. I've gotten in a ring and fought people multiple times, and still to this day I would almost rather go and fight in a ring than get on stage.
Yeah, it's hard. It's fucking hard. Do you have any kind of pre-show ritual, or how do you
not eating?
Not eating?
Not eating. It feels like I've swallowed a hornet's nest.
Are you open to a little thing that's been useful for me of that feeling, that I've swallowed a hornet's nest feeling?
So I talked to my therapist lady we talked about earlier. She gave me a few pointers, visualization techniques that have really helped a lot. So just different breathing things. And of course, she just told me to kind of visualize, if it's swirling in your stomach, just to try and visualize spinning it the opposite direction. And for whatever reason,
I love that.
It works. I just picture a black hole spinning in, and if it's spinning one way, just close your eyes, breathe, and picture turning it the opposite way. And it's you can almost feel the stress and anxiety unwinding.
Ooh, I love that.
That's helped a lot. I think just getting more comfortable and just having more fun and trying to manage my own expectations is really what's helped to deal with a lot of that. But as far as pre-show stuff goes, I really just tried not to drink a lot of caffeine, because the first time I went up, I drank caffeine and immediately regretted it. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh
uh,
my.
really,
Yeah.
I just like, so before the Rumble, I think that was the most in tune I was, the most dialed in. I can't take the day off from tattooing or doing other things and think about it, because I will fester in it all day and it will consume me, and I'll choke on stage. So
Yeah.
I almost have to like be mindful of it without being consumed by it. And everybody just is like, just have fun. Like Kay Banks, she's been great. She was like, just go do some of your favorite shit and have a good day, and just go up there and have fun. And so I went to work, I tattooed all day, I had a good client, so that helped. And then I got home and I had probably a good 2.5 hours before I had to leave. So I had dinner by myself. I watched like F is for Family on TV. Bill Burr's great, makes me laugh. And I hung out with my dogs. Like, it was like so peaceful and dumb and dorky that it just was so nice. And then like when it was close to time to go, I got in my truck, listened to some music, got pumped up, and was like literally like yelling to myself like a maniac, just giving myself like mantras about how I'm ready and I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah.
And I was like so dialed in and ready to do it.
Yeah. You were tight. You were right there. There's this. Do you like skateboard or ride a one wheel or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to skateboard, snowboard, all that stuff.
So I ride a one wheel, and I've taught a bunch of people how to ride one wheel. And what I tell them when I'm teaching them, the first thing I teach them is how to engage with the wheel. And what I tell them is you got to be loose but tight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So first you're loose. And that means that if you hit something that's bumpy, you're just loose. But it's like you're relaxed, and then you just turn it on so that it's sort of like you're just barely
engaging that gear,
barely engaging that loose, because then you can ride it. Right. And that I feel the same way at comedy, because I get those, like that hornet's nest, right? I'm a bundle every time it's just, and what I've learned, the thing that I tell myself, my mantra is I go up anytime I start to feel that, and it starts to, because sometimes what the problem is that, because that's just energy, right? It's just energy. And what the problem is that sometimes that energy can get up into my brain, and it can start to say, oh, maybe, right? And so the mantra that I have is when it comes up and it tries to get in my brain, I just say, this is what it feels like to get ready.
Yeah. That's good.
This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to get ready for a show. And then I just imagine, someone said, I don't know where I picked this up, but someone said something that was really powerful to me, which was, nervousness is just excitement without the breath.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Every time, so I started the show with breathing, but every time before Kay Banks and I went in and chatted, we breathed together. Before I go up on stage, big inhale, powerful exhale. And then that's the first thing. And then I go up, because that gets me. I saw someone do, I think it was a joke actually, but it was mocking the dude. It was what was it? It was a guy that was like, he was like shooting an arrow on some TV show, and he was like this over the top, like big. But what he did is he before he went, and then he did it, and I was like, oh, that's you're clearing your system, right? It's reset, and the more times you do that, the more powerful that tool becomes, because your body knows, oh, now that tells me drop in, tight but loose but tight. Right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too that I would start doing, that I guess it's kind of semi a pre-show ritual, is like, I will pick the music. Like, for example, like at Wise Guys, they play Michael Jackson, About to Be Starting Something, which I love that song. But when I first was doing open mics there's so much, oddly enough, there's so much more pressure at the open mic there than there is at like some of these other shows I've been doing, where it's a little bit more of like a forgiving format.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where just hearing that music would stress me out. I would get anxiety hearing that. Like, I heard that song outside of there and was like, why am I sweaty? And I realized it's that whole like Pavlov's dog kind of like brain thing. So I just started, like, I'd get out of the gym, have a great session, and I would put that song on, and I would just be like, just vibing and jamming on my way home, just like,
oh man, yeah.
So I just you have to change your mindset, you have to change your perspective. And I think that's the biggest part about, I mean, a lot of things or problems, is that you have to really prepare your mind for what you're doing, and you have more control than you realize.
You really do. And you're the boss, right?
Yeah.
You're the boss. And the thing is, right, is you're the boss on stage too.
Right.
And but before you can really be the boss on stage, you got to be the boss here. So
Right.
I got to be the boss of me. And if I'm the boss of me, then I have the authority to go up on stage and be like, y'all, I am Chair Colt's prophet.
About to be dropping knowledge.
Be prepared. I am in charge. I'm daddy. You're all baby. Listen to what I have. We're going to have a good night.
Right.
And that allows you, and that's what everyone wants, right? Is when you want, people want the person on the stage to, they want to surrender to that.
Yes. They want you to take control.
They want you to make them laugh, right? They're opening themselves up to you, and they're saying, they're at a show. They've come out to laugh. And so they're like, please take me. And we're like, oh, we will take you.
Oh yeah. I think that's part of, I think, like, I know we kind of like bounce around, but part of my writing process is that I am an overthinker. So I overthink every situation. And like the beauty in that is that it gives me tons of material, because I've so many different perspectives that I can take the super bitter, angry route. I could take the victim route. I could take all these different angles and find the funny in it.
Yeah. I often think of, when I'm writing, my process sort of begins with an idea. There's like a thing where I'm like, ooh, there's something here.
Yep.
Funny. And I'll take that and I'll write with it a little bit. I'll try it with some people. And it sort of reminds, it's kind of like this thing, right? Where if you look close, there's like this big swirly thing inside there.
Yeah.
Rest of it is clear. So imagine that this is dark. It's almost like I can see that thing in there. And then I'm just kind of trying to get and I'm turning it and I'm looking at it from different directions.
Right. Trying to figure it out.
Is it like, what is it? And I'm doing that as I'm talking to people, and I'm hearing how they're responding. And then it slowly finds the shape of what it wants to be. But it has to be, and this is what kind of makes comedy tricky, is it has to be done in communion, right? Where if I can write a song, I can play music, and I can practice that. I can do it over and over and over and over and over again, and then it will be good. You can kind of do that with stand-up. Like you can rehearse your stuff, but also if you rehearse it too much and you're too committed to the thing, is the way that you wrote it down.
Yeah.
And that comes up.
You have what I had. Your brain just short circuits, and you miss a line, or you forget something, or you're so worried about that next line that you're not in the moment of what you're saying. Yeah. And your brain's like, wait, what was I talking about?
What's going on? Yeah. And then you're stuck. And so we actually do, my coach, when I first started, he said something really great, which was that comedy is the hardest art form in the world, because we have to practice in public. Mm-hmm. We got to practice. And that is scary. That is intimidating, right? It's difficult.
Oftentimes not rewarding.
Right. It's oftentimes very not rewarding.
Lots of shame involved.
Right. We're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Hell yeah. Dude, I love this. I want to wrap us up here because I want to be respectful of your time.
Of course.
But I've loved this conversation. I think that just getting to know you a little bit more and just kind of exploring what is for me a really beautiful part of my soul is comedy, and being able to sort of explore that with someone who sort of shares the same sort of is approaching it with the same level of respect that I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to say, like, I see you, and thank you for being on this journey as a fellow craftsman. I'm really thrilled to have you. There's sort of, because this is an apocalypse show. And so the premise of the show is that we are like 3 years into the apocalypse, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
There's no water in the apocalypse either. That's why I'm choking.
No water. So like no water. Sometimes the Wi-Fi doesn't work. So there are sort of two apocalypse questions I want to ask you, and then we'll wrap.
Gotcha.
First one is really what I think, because I think that this is not the first time there's been an apocalypse. I think that these are cycles in human history where we build and then it breaks, and then we build it back and then it breaks. I think that's how the world spins, right? That's why the
Right.
world. And I think that right now, even though it is scary for a lot of people, even though there's a lot of uncertainty, there is a really beautiful opportunity that we have, which is the old world is dying and
Hmm.
the new world is being born. And so I'm curious, what are the parts, are there parts of the old world that you're hoping to sort of let go of? And what are the new things that you are hoping that we can build in this new world?
Oof, that's like such an open-ended question. There's so many different ways you can answer it. I guess I could get super deep and philosophical and say that I think that people should get I wish that people would lose this attachment to ego and image,
Mm,
because I think we get so caught. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, that's why I shaved my head. I had beautiful long hair, and as soon as it started thinning, I was like, I'm not going to be that creep with fucking pedophile hair. Get rid of it. But I think it's like if you get so attached to this idea of who you are without being able to change, then like you're never going to make progress. I guess ultimately that's what I wish that people would leave behind. I guess more of a mindset than any kind of a tangible physical thing.
I love that. And I think that mindset really is, I mean, mindsets make the world, right? I
100%.
makes my world, and then collectively we make that world together. Rad. Okay, so the next question is, what apocalyptic skill do you have to teach me that will help me survive in the apocalypse?
Ooh. Well, I guess I grew up riding motorcycles in the desert, so I'm good with directions and landmarks. I mean,
Okay.
so I can definitely find my way around. I don't have a hard time getting lost.
Do you have, is there like how do you do that? Like when you're in a new area, let's say, how do you really quickly build a map for yourself?
I just sequentially remember sort of like what landmarks were next to me when I was facing a certain way and in what order I saw these main landmarks, so that if I do it in reverse, if it's, cactus, tumbleweed, cave, it's
Mm.
cave, reverse, going back the other way. So then you tend to go, okay, I'm on the right track. And all of a sudden, if you see something you don't recognize, you're like, wait a minute, you go back to where you were before. And then,
Oh, it's like you're breadcrumbing yourself. You
yeah,
go
to a
to
degree, yeah.
this new area and you're like, okay, there's that, and I saw it when I was so then you can always, if you get off, then you can always find your way back to the breadcrumb trail.
Definitely.
I love that. That's great. That's
But
solid.
I can't say that like I have any kind of like crazy survivalist skills or anything like that. I mean, I'm definitely uh
Don't worry, I have that enough.
I'm very resourceful. Like I definitely am a good problem solver. Like I think that that's maybe what I bring to the table more than anything, is that I have a different perspective on how to solve certain problems.
Yeah. Well, and what I've noticed too, right, is because I come from people we have been preparing for the apocalypse for hundreds of years, right? So we food store, like we have all, physically we are all prepared, but mentally we're not the kind of, what I've realized is, if the world really were good to go, I mean, it is crazy, but if it were to like full on like Walking Dead apocalypse,
Right.
I would way rather be with people who are doing creative, cool, interesting shit right now.
Yeah, 100%.
If right now you're doing cool, interesting, if you are actively engaged in doing something cool and interesting, whatever happens, you're going to be that same person. And there's a lot of rigidity that I like. Some of the preppers I've seen a lot of like we got to have all our, and it's like, no, like live your life, like be aggressively involved in creating the world that you want, and don't just detach from it. Don't just sit back, be doing. And then if something crazy happens, I would way rather be with a bunch of people who are doing shit.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I figure too, like anybody who's going to be creative, they're going to be a little bit more sensitive, and they're going to be more inclined to want to see everybody do well and thrive. Whereas people get so caught up and they're worried that it becomes a survival mentality where like, if I can't have it, no one can, you know what I mean? And I don't think that kind of mentality does anybody good at any time.
Yeah, I agree. Hell yeah, dude. Is there anything that you want to promote? So do you have any, are you on any shows coming up? Do you want people to follow you on Instagram? Like
Yeah.
what?
So on Instagram, I'm at Jason Paxman Tattoos. I do have a TikTok. I don't remember what that is right now. I'm terrible because I just started it, but it's I think it's Jason Paxman Comedy on TikTok. But yeah, just check out my stuff. I got stuff going on all around Vegas. I do have a new show that's coming up on Tuesdays in the Arts District at Cornish Pasty. My friend Diaz.
Give us the dates just so that it's
Saturday or Tuesday, December 3rd is
Tuesday,
the show
December
will be on. Yeah.
That's in the
Diaz, it's Cornish Pasty. Diaz comedians putting that on. There's going to be a great setup of comedians on that one.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else?
No, I mean, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, for having me on the podcast, for having me be part of the Rumble, for being my friend, and for being so welcoming into this community. I can't thank all the comics who've helped me out: Chris Springs, Sam Lundstedt, Kate Banks, you, anybody I've missed, I apologize, but all you guys who've helped me out and really like taking me in, I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I am thrilled to help, and I am thrilled to have you as part of my community. I believe very, very strongly that community is how we survive.
100%.
That is the way, and the way that we build community is by being generous. And when we're generous with our communities naturally take care of themselves, care of us, right?
Rising tides raise all ships.
All ships. It's what's good for one is good for all. And that's the world. That may not be the entire world, but that is the world that I live in, and that's the world that I demand to be in.
Right, and that's the world I choose to live in. So that's why we're good friends.
I think that's why we've connected. I'm thrilled to have you. Thanks so much for coming on. Everyone, for me, always, you can follow me at the Fresh King Benjamin on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And remember, we've got the All-Star Comedy Rumble in Salt Lake this Friday, November 29th. That's in 2 days from when this is recording. It's probably tomorrow from when this airs. Tickets are already a third gone. So they're moving, and I'm blowing on this fire hard. So it's going to sell out. And so if you want tickets, you should get them now, because they might not, if you show up at the door, they might not be there. And then I'll be back in Vegas the very next day, November 30th. So the 29th in Jordan Landing, Wise Guys, 7:30 for Comedy Rumble All-Stars. And then the 30th at 9:30 at the Arts District, Wise Guys in Vegas for Comedy Rumble 4, which is going to be sick.
I got ticket link in my bio for that one as well, for the Las Vegas show.
Awesome. I appreciate you, brother. I think that's it. Thanks, Jason, for coming on, and everybody else, stay safe out there.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one.